Hi, and welcome to this introductory webcast to the ext scheduler. Today I will show you the most simple way possible to implement the ext scheduler, and hopefully I will end up with less than 50 lines of code if I'm lucky. And if you've tried this product before, then you will have seen this view where you have the resources on the left. In this example it's staff, and on the right hand side we have the actual schedule area with all the events. And sort of the key concept to realize here is that the resources on the left are contained in one store and the events in another, and they're tied together through an ID property on the resources, and on the events you'll have to have a resource ID property. So it's very much like a foreign key relationship in database terms. So let's start looking at some code. I've created a very simple HTML file which contains just the library files of XJS and then the hello world file. The hello world file just contains the EXTOnReady call, which is what we use to be notified when the DOM is ready, and then just some basic code for the entities that we are creating. So we're creating two stores and one scheduler panel for this example. So for the first store we're going to store the resources, and in the second store we have the events. And let's start by filling out some blanks in the scheduler panel. So we're going to start by rendering it to somewhere in the DOM, and that will be the body for this example. We will have a height 400, we will have a width 800. We'll later try to fill in some columns. We'll leave that as an empty array for now. We need to decide when in time, what time span we want to show, and this is done through the view model property. Let's create a new date, 2010. Remember that months in JavaScript dates are 0 based, so this will correspond to the 10th of October. And then we will create an end 10 days later. And then we have to decide what type of column to show, if we're going to show minutes, weeks or hours, and for this example we're just going to show a simple day column. And then the last piece of this puzzle is to assign the stores to the scheduler. So that's done through the store property, which has the resources which will go in the rows, and then the events will go in the event store. So something like this. And now we can start looking at the data. So our resources are going to end up on the left as one row per resource. And I think we can start by just creating a dummy response from a server that we're not using. We're actually just using a simple JS file, but this would be your PHP web service response or your ASP.NET page method response or so. So let's just create a simple JS file and blank, and then just create one simple JSON object. So as I said, you need to have an ID for every resource. So this would be, I just call it R for some reason. And then I want my resource to have a name, and I will call this resource Mike. So that's everything we'll use for the data. So we're just going to load one row for now. And now, if you've seen the API that's available on the XJS site, you can browse to the store, and there are some other very good key concepts that you have to know about, such as the reader, records, and also the grid panel is almost a must to have some knowledge about, since that's what the schedule panel is based on. So going back here now, we can point the URL to the file we just created, resources.js, and now we know from where we're loading it, but we don't know how to parse it, so we have to tell the store how to parse it, and that's done through a JSON reader. So ux.data.json reader, since we chose JSON as the format. And another thing you have to know about this setup for the scheduler is that you have to let the reader know which of your fields is that that uniquely identifying field. So for our example, we had the data. I mean, we had the ID field set up here. So the ID property must be set to ID for this to work. And then we will have some fields, and that will just be ID and name. And of course, we have to load this too. So I'm going to do this using the auto load feature of the stores. So now, hopefully, this will actually run and show one resource. So let's try to load this in Firefox. Ta-da! Okay, so we're actually seeing one row, which is kind of what we expected. And now, to make it more interesting, let's just add a column. And to get our name to show up, we have to point the column to a data index in our store. So I'd like name to be displayed, and then I'll set a header to employee, something like that. And we can reload. And now you can see we have the employee column on the left, and we have Mike as the first row. So now we can continue with the events. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to create a dummy file which will represent the server response for the events, and I will also use just one record for now. And here, correspondingly, I have to point this to the actual resource that I want to use. So this event will belong to the resource ID of R, which is Mike, and we don't need a name right here. What we need is a start date, of course, and I'll set this to some magic date format. So I'll set this to something like this, and we also need an end date. So I'm setting this to 18, just making sure this is inside the time span, and this looks okay now. So now we have to do a similar configuration of the event store. So we need a reader, and we need a URL. Let's point that to events, and we can also make an auto load for this. And now things are slightly different. We have to have a resource ID field. We don't need an ID property for this reader. We don't have a name, but we have a start date, and we have an end date. And this is a slightly tricky thing, because working with dates can be very different depending on what type of date format you're using and so on. So you actually have to specify to Ext that this field is of a date type. So instead of just specifying the field as a string, I will specify it as an object. I will say it has a name, it will be a type date, and then also the most important part, I have to tell Ext which format is used for my dates. And you can read more about which formats are supported. Ext uses sort of a mirror of the PHP date model. So you can read here in the date class. There's a big table of how you can format your dates and how to consume them. So going back here, if we check out this, I had a year, month, day. So let's just do this, and then of course we'll need to use the same for the end date. So now we're loading from events.js. We're consuming it hopefully the right way. So now we can reload and see if it pops up on the 15th. And there we go. So now you have a fully functional scheduler running in less than 50 lines of code. And I hope you found this little tutorial to be of use, and if not, please send us a note on the forums, which is ext-scheduler.com/forum.